Hey everyone, it's Wolfram here, and I'm going to do a video about how to run low-sec missions safely. Now I'm going to be really clear, you can't run something in low-sec 100% safe. All you can do is reduce the risk of being ganked. So I'm not saying anything's 100%. You can get hunted down, you can get found. What I'm doing in the background, this is super soft drink, and I'm showing the tactic I use for running missions. I multi-box, so I've got two ships running it. You could do this by multi-boxing yourself, or you can run it with someone else from your corp or alliance. By all means, I suggest join a corp or alliance and run these things together. You can share the bounties, share the rewards, you decide how to do it. But this is a good way of doing it because if one of you runs a speed tanking frigate, the advantages are huge in running the missions. So what I'm running here is a Oracle 2, which brings the DPS, and I'm running a Worm, which brings all the benefits of the frigate, plus a bit of extra DPS as well. And the reason I'm doing this is primarily so that the Worm can give me a warning if someone scans me down. My Worm's source radius, check out the fitting bit at the end, I go over source radius at the end of this video with the fittings for the Worm and the fittings for the Oracle, is about 148 meters. That means most people are not able to scan me down without getting a warning. A lot of people are going to struggle to scan the Worm down anyway. They won't struggle with the battle cruiser. That's got a source radius over 300 meters, so most people are going to find that. It's the Worm, and the reason is the Worm gives me the chance to get out. And so I'll get a warning, and I can get battle cruiser out. I can get the Worm out as well because it's got a much faster warp in time. The reason I like the Worm is that I can effectively orbit at 30 kilometers, which is what I'm doing here. The medium rapids won't hit. Again, I cover that in the fitting as to why I've got medium rapids, and my drones will hit for the extra DPS. Also, it means that the ships will aggro me, the Worm, and they won't aggro the Oracle, and that means that the Worm basically attracts all the attention of the enemy ships. No one's zooming towards my Oracle trying to get under its guns, anything like that. I'm running a beam fit Oracle, it's doing about 1200 DPS. That means I can really chew through the ships. As you see, this is the Oracle point of view. We were just having the Worm point of view. The Worm's orbiting. Basically, all the enemy pay attention, all the rats paying attention to the Worm, they ignore the Oracle because it's so far away. But it's the Oracle doing all the damage. Equally, you can, if you skill up into the Worm, a ship like the Worm, something like, you could also use a Condor. Condor or Interceptor would be really good at this, but the Worm's really good at it because I can orbit further out if I need to. So I can orbit in the Worm 15 kilometers, and the medium rapids will hit, and I'm still out of web and scram range. I'm still doing about 3,000 meters a second. So that tactic works really well in also that you get a warning so you know when to warp out. The other thing you need to think about is if you're running a DPS ship like I am, I sit out at 70 to 80 kilometers away, and I'm pre-aligned to a safe warp out. Now, in this circumstance, in this system, there is a station, and I'm going to warp out to the station I've chosen. There's lots of stations, which makes life a little bit easier. If you're in a system without a station, you've got to pre-align to a gate. The other important thing is with the DPS ship, especially if you're stationary in it, like I am, you're going to want to warp in to your anomaly, not from a gate. You want to be able to warp in from a planet, an asteroid, something else, just because it makes it a harder warp in for any pirates who then do find you. So they can't immediately drop on top of you, because it gives you a chance to get out. It also gives you a chance to defend yourself. And so sometimes it'll give it away. If they're flying in with an interceptor, they'll warp in, but they'll be 100 kilometers away, so it gives you a chance to get out, decide what you're going to do about it. If you're warping in from a gate, you risk them very easily warping on top of you, because they'll just decide, Oracle probably beam fit, we're going to warp in at, I don't know, 80 kilometers and see if I land right on top of him. And there's more likelihood they're going to do it. The alternative to that is you could orbit So you could orbit at 80, the super soft drink, the main anomaly, I could orbit at 80 or 90 and pick off the ships. Except I don't like doing that because it means I can't be pre-aligned to my safe warp out. My warp time in the Oracle is about 9 seconds, and so that I can cut that down hugely if I'm still and facing pre-aligned to where my save point is. So I don't do that, but it is an option. If you if you can multi-box, then and you don't want to do it with someone else, and you don't have enough for a worm, and you haven't got the skills, let's say, for a Condor Interceptor, then I suggest just taking a capsule. Take a capsule in, and the capsule will again give you all the same benefits. You'll get a warning that someone scans you down because the capsule's got a really low source radius. Just so you can understand some of the considerations I've had, I have not put warp core optimizers on my Oracle. The reason is most pirates tackle are going to at least run 6 points, if not 8 points. If I want to have 6 points of warp core, that's another 460 million at current prices. If I want to have 9 points, that's almost a billion. No, that's not almost a billion. It's almost 700 million in rigs, and those are the only rigs I can put on in the mid slots for the Oracle, and I would lose out on my cap rigs, which are mostly mine are all cap rigs on this fit, which would cause me capacitor problems even if I was just running the lasers. Plus, it would it over doubles the cost of the ship. The ship at the moment is about 500 million, which is under between 9 and 1,000 IP to replace. Same for the worm, it's about 500,000, about 900 IP to replace. Again, I'm going to go over those. That's why I don't run the warp core, because it makes your ships really expensive. By means, on really expensive ships, it's worthwhile fitting. But when those rigs are worth more than the entire ship and all the fittings, it just doesn't seem worth it. I could then run all warp core stabs in the low slots. It means I have to give up some DPS, give up some tracking maybe, give up some other things. I could do that, but again, if I run one warp core stab, that gives me 4 points when active. That's not going to be enough. Like if I run 2, that gives me 8. That might be enough. And if I run 3, of course, that gives me 12. That's more than likely going to be enough. But the problem is, the downside putting warp core stabs like auras on is they have a huge impact on your ability to target quickly. You will, double, triple the rate of time it takes for you to lock on to targets, and it will just slow down everything, and it just becomes really irritating. I've tried it, I don't like it, and so I don't run them. I'd much rather have my low slots given over to tracking and DPS, which is why I run the system. So those are the reasons. So it really is relatively simple. If you could run 2 of you, if it be like with you multi-boxing or whether you're running it with court mates, one of you runs a frigate so that you can have easy detection. If they haven't got frigate skills and they're willing to do nothing, you could always put a cloaky frigate, a covert ops frigate, into the anomaly with a cloak and just sit there and then give you a warning if someone scanned you down. That's another way of doing it. Just same effectively as a trick with a capsule you can do. If you're doing it solo, if you're purely doing it solo, then I entirely understand you're not going to be able to run the DPS, and that's where the worm also comes in great. So the worm can run these PvEs with the skills, with the right fit. I go over the fit and all the skills I've got. It can run all the way up to T10s without significant difficulty. It will take time because you're not putting out huge amounts of DPS, but you can do it solo, and you'll get a warning if you're scanned, and you can do it safely. This now footage is showing it running a high-sec solo T9 mission, and you can see it gets through it. It can do it, and it took me about 10-15 minutes in order to do this simple one. It's going to take much longer to do storylines, but the option is there to do it. And the advantage of the worm is your orbit. You can orbit at 30 kilometers with the drones doing the damage. If you do a different fit to me, you could probably get on medium missiles. Power grid's the problem with them. Here I can orbit at 15. So in these ones and the low sec ones that are 4 or 5 million, I will orbit at 15 happily, and I can apply the rapid missile damage as well. If I do the high-end storyline missions, I will orbit at 30 because there's just too much risk of you orbiting into the pack basically at 15 and causing problems that way. So that's what I do in terms of the worm and how I'm running missions safely, and some ideas for you to think about on how you can do them safely. As I said, not 100%, but really think about it. It's about making sure you get a notice that you're being scanned down, and it's also about making sure you're getting pre-aligned, that you have a safe spot and you're warping into your anomaly, not from the gates. That gives you great opportunities for making sure that if anyone does come hunting you, you can get out and get yourself to safety. You can also choose to take the fight if you think you can win the fight, but remember, I know in this Oracle, I'm not going to be fighting because it's a PvE fit Oracle, and if I go hunting, I have PvP fit ships, and the Oracle might be pretty decent, but it's not going to be, when it's in its PvE setup, optimal for taking a fight, and more often than not people are ganking in fleets, so the tackle's going to warp in, try and tackle you, the rest of the fleet are going to warp in on top of you, and my Oracle cannot take that type of damage, and so I've got to be set up safe and get out. That's what you've got to do. So I hope this helps figure out some of those things. I'm going to go over the ship fits to help you understand how I'm running these particular ships. So I've gone over the basics of tips for doing this strategy in terms of being able to run the missions in low sec safely, or safer. Got to be careful. And so I just want to go over the fit for the worm, so you can understand. Firstly, in terms of ship info, I'm not going to go. There are plenty of videos showing how what the worm does. It's a good ship for PvE. It's a good ship for PvP actually, which I've done a bit in it. But it's and I've got all the necessary skills for it. But crucially, it's this: the source radius 148, which means it's very difficult to scan down without getting a warning. You're going to get a warning from almost anyone who's scanning, because they'll need a very specialised ship and high skills to be able to scan me down without getting any warning. If again, this system works if you wanted to just use a capsule, but the worm's good because it adds a bit of DPS. It has the control of the encounter, but everyone aggroes the rats aggro the worm and leave the Oracle to do the DPS. So in terms of the fitting itself, and before I turn to fitting, I'll do the skills just so you can see. I'm a Tech 9, not yet long enough to Tech 10, but I'm 554 in frigates, 554 in micro warp, defense upgrade 554 for frigates. Electronics, this is important, 554 for frigates, because you're going to need to squeeze out that power grid, and I'll show you why in a moment. It would also be useful to have cruiser engineering at 554, because you reduce, or in 555, because in expert cruiser engineering you reduce the power grid need for medium turrets, so it gives you a bit more leeway, as you'll see in a moment. And then weapons wise, I'm not maxed out in my skills of 5 using mediums, 5.5 and 4.4 in my medium missiles, and drones, small drones, I'm 5.53, 5.53 with drone itself being at 5.53 as well. And that means you do this with the fitting. It means I can fit medium missiles, rapids in my top slots. I cannot fit mediums. I just don't have the power grid. Even if I swap one over, I can't do it. That's fine. If I had mediums, it would be better, because it gives me missile range of 30 kilometers, so I could orbit at 30 and do the damage. I can achieve fitting it, but I don't want to. So I'm happy in the storyline missions to orbit at 30 and let the drones do the damage. They make up for a decent chunk of the damage. The worm's job isn't to do all the DPS. It helps out, but it isn't. It's there to aggro the rats, speed tank them, do a bit of damage, and give me a warning if anyone's coming in. So if you can manage to fit the mediums by all means fantastic. Soloing, I'm fine with medium rapids. I can orbit at 15. I still apply damage because I've got an 18-kilometer range, and the drones and everything can do damage, and I get through it in an okay time. It's never going to be really fast. I mean, obviously everything will go up if I increase my medium missile skills. In the mid slots, it's a bit tough. The power grid is dominated by these, and it does cause problems. If I just show you, I can achieve this by putting a power grid 3 in, and then I've got auxiliary thrusters 2 and polycarbon 2. I really think you do need the polycarbon because you need that inertia modifier buff so that you can orbit a bit more smoothly. You'll otherwise find it a bit choppy. And I've put in the speed because it gives me a bit more speed. I haven't put 3s in because I'm not spending the money on them. In terms of those rigs, so if you wanted to put medium missiles rather than rapids in, you'd probably have to give up the auxiliary thrusters to put another auxiliary. I think you need 3 power grids in order to have just enough power grid to fit the 2 medium missiles. I just don't want to give up benefits. I don't think it changes it. It's fine for me. If you wanted it, then that's fine. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying this is fine for me. I've got damage, speed, augmenter, and a firepower for the drones, so buff the damage, and I plug the gap on the resistances, giving me decent frigate defense, over 7,000 overall, and obviously the EM's been buffed, so that's fine. And as you saw in action, I just had to top up the shield occasionally. Even when you get onto the tougher ships, really, as soon as you take out the frigates, the bigger ships can't track you fast enough to be able to do any damage, so it's fine. So that's the worm. That's what I recommend to use, and all the advantages of it. It is cheap-ish. It's less than 1,000 IP to replace. Which probably makes its total cost somewhere around, if you're looking at that, what's that, about $500 million, 500 million or so. That's actually about 100 million to replace. A little bit more than that, maybe 150 million. But you can make that doing the missions. You can run the missions solo in it. You can run it as I've shown you how to run it with a DPS ship as well. So I'm just going to swap over at this point so you can see the Oracle as well, which is so this is the Oracle I've got, and again I'm just going to show you the same, so you can understand its source radius is 321. So you can see it's a huge difference. It's almost double the size of the worm. I still get notifications on it. It's not, so obviously people hunting with big battleships scaling down. This is a beam fit, so it's a long range fit I use for the encounters, but I can hit from a long way out. This is my DPS. In fact, I've just finished my nano core for it, so I'll put that on and show you the changes. This is what I use for encounter running. I am not fit for this. Is why I've got to be careful. So I'm not running any warp core stabilizers in my rigs. I haven't got any aura warp core, so I've got to be aligned. If someone jumps on me, I'm pretty much dead. I haven't got the greatest skills in the defense for battle cruisers, so I'm not sitting. It's got decent hit points, but it's not gonna tank anything seriously. It is a bit of a glass cannon fit, and that's fine for me. So I'm running Centus and Corpum, doesn't really matter, but they give me decent range. I think I've got longer range actually if I undock, but it's about 70 kilometers. That's fine. They kick out. I kick out decent damage. I can boost it. I've got 2 heat sinks on there. I've got a tracking computer to help stretch the range out enormously if I need to stretch it out if I'm a bit far. And then if I'm deciding to take some damage, I've got navy armor, armor hardener, and a blue medium armor repairer. I mean, I could switch the armor hardener out for something else, another tracking. I could even put another heat sink on if I wanted. I think I've got the micro warp just so I can maneuver. As you saw, you need to pick up things, bits and pieces, and I'll run double webs in a scram in case anything gets underneath. I generally find double web in the scram will slow it down enough, a frigate down enough for me able to hit it with the beams. If I ran everything, yeah, my cap's a bit of a problem, but you don't really run everything on this ship. Navigation-wise, that's always a problem, so that's where you've got to pre-align to reduce your time it takes to get warp out. Rig-wise, relatively simple, everything's damage. 2 laser burst area, just 2, laser collision 3. Again, I'm not putting the 3s on because they are really expensive. And then I've got a cap control circuit. So this is all for capacitor. Again, because it doesn't move around, I could put a targeting system on if I wanted. I've done that before, but I don't think it provides such a huge boost in this ship that I need to worry about it. I'm just going to show you. I've just got the nano core for it. I just built it. It wasn't expensive. So that's with the core fitted. Decent bump in DPS, which I could afford to add. Yeah, built it myself. It was not the cheapest, but I had the ISK from running missions, so that's pretty much what I use for the Oracle. Anyway, if you reached this far, thank you very much for watching the video. As always, like and subscribe. Thanks a lot.